What's up, YouTube? I'm Brad from Rants. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Alright, so we finally made it to episode 5 of American Gods. This was probably one of the slowest episodes so far. I can honestly say I did not enjoy this episode at all. In fact, I barely made it through it. I mean, and that's kind of odd to say because it seems like season 3 has been so strong. But it seems like American Gods is at its best when you either have Laura, Mr. Wednesday, or Shadow Moon doing something interesting or entertaining. And that didn't really happen in this episode. In fact, I thought it was a really weak episode by Shadow Moon and by Laura. And then some of the other characters just kind of were there to be there. They really, you take Salim and Ibis, they really didn't play that big of a role. I mean, Salim did have one moment that was kind of tragic in a way, but besides that, there really wasn't anything. He didn't really add anything to push the story forward. But overall, I mean, I would say Demeter probably was at her strongest. Simply because it seems like she's the only one that can really put Mr. Wednesday in his place. And I really enjoy her character. I mean, actually love her character. I actually hope her character from now on is kind of a mainstay on this show because it's really pleasant to see a character that can actually stand up to Mr. Wednesday and kind of hold him at his own game. He can't con her. Maybe it's because, she was his wife and she knows him probably better than anyone else, but he seems like he's at her mercy in a lot of ways and she knows his weak points. And at the very end, she actually does show some of the weak points and really throws him off his game completely. It's one of the only times that you'll ever see him stunned and just really not able to really speak. But overall, let me go ahead and get into this. I thought the intro was poor this time. It seems like American Gods is really good about telling great origin stories for a lot of their characters. But I felt like when it come to Technical Boy, I kind of felt like his origin story was really lame. Of course, it's going to take place at a World's Fair. I think it was in 1893 or something along those lines. But it really kind of detailed just how, well, to me, I don't really understand. Was Technical Boy an actual individual? Like, I don't really understand how that exactly worked. Because when he was talking to that magician that actually was conning him, it seemed like he didn't. It seemed like his origin story wasn't from somebody bringing him over, through, as a god, worshiping him. But instead, it was almost like he was trying to say, well, I've got a story, a human story, and that was kind of odd for me. I don't exactly know what to make of that. Maybe the new gods are a little bit different than the old gods in that. Maybe the new gods at one time were more human, or maybe it's the humanity inside of them that's showing. I don't know. Maybe it's a god that maybe lost himself a little bit. That was just one thing that kind of perplexed me. But I kind of enjoyed how Technical Boy did show kind of a crossroads. You kind of see now in American Gods where, the old gods are, they rely upon their myth and about, the legions and legions of people that believe in them that give them strength. And they kind of keep this strength by tricking people. You see it a lot in Mr. Wednesday. You know how Mr. Wednesday, that's how he gains his support, is through tricking people and making them believe that he's something that he's not. Where I feel like, when it comes to the technical terms of things, I feel like the magician was playing that role of the old gods, and Technical Boy, of course, was playing the role of the new gods, where that he was trying to bring something um, new and fascinating into the world, something that could maybe help mankind. Where that the old gods were more about keeping up the myth more than actually, um, you know, doing something to better mankind. Which, you see that a lot in some of the older stories of myths around the world. A lot of the old gods, and, especially from like Greek mythology, they were kind of conceited in that way. They weren't really ever about bringing great things to humanity. They were more about, uh, you know, gaining their power and holding humanity down. So I thought that was kind of maybe a nice little way of detailing that. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but that's kind of what I got out of it. But yeah, overall though, I just didn't really like that opening sequence. But I will say Bilquis. We're talking about those who did poorly this episode, the characters that did poorly this episode. Bilquis was the polar opposite. This was a strong, strong episode from Bilquis. The only reason why I feel like she couldn't save this episode is because she wasn't shown enough in it. Of course, she was imprisoned, and we're actually getting to see her true nature. She finally, I think it was Oshun she was talking to, and she realizes that the God that takes things from people, that takes their that use these sexual ways to gain these sacrifices isn't really who she was. She's actually a God that is supposed to be giving to people, saving people, and over the years she had lost her way because mankind began to view her as something that she really wasn't. And for a time, she actually believed it. Or for, I guess, hundreds of years, she actually believed that she was what they had told her she was. Which kind of made me wonder, is she reinventing herself, or is she just reclaiming what she was? If I had to guess, I would say she's reclaiming what she was, because I was going to say, if she was reinventing herself, I don't think that's something that these gods can necessarily do. Yes, they can kind of find new means of gaining followers. Like what Mr. Wednesday did with the metal band. Um, but that's not really reinventing yourself. They need humans to be able to do that, to reinvent them for them. But Bilquis, I guess, is just reclaiming who she is. So I guess that's the reason why she's saying, well, now she's basically got a new lease on life, and now she's going to do what she was actually put on this earth to do in the first place. So I actually really enjoy her and Shadow Moon's back and forth a little bit. I didn't really understand Shadow Moon talking about, I guess it was his mom. I didn't really understand what that really had to do with anything. Uh, but as far as Bilquis is concerned, she's an interesting character. She'll always be one of my favorite characters. Um, but sadly, she's one of those characters that we never see enough of. It's like the show is almost afraid to give her her own time, whether they do it with lesser characters. We've even had Salim and the Jinn having their own, stories. We've had Shadow Moon, and even some of these minor characters that follow around Shadow Moon have had more time on air than what Bilquis actually has, and that's kind of sad. I don't know why they're that way. I feel like Bilquis could actually be, she's very beneficial to this show. I feel like if they drew more upon her, I feel like this show would be a lot better off. But yeah, so there's that, and what else? What else? The Mr. Wednesday, uh, kind of blackmailed uh, Shadow Moon. Shadow Moon, finally comes to see Mr. Wednesday. Mr. Wednesday basically tells him, "You're gonna help. You're gonna help me get Demeter out of here." And of course, Shadow Moon he resists, only for Mr. Wednesday to remind him, "Well, okay, if you won't do it, then I'll get Chernobog to do it, and it's gonna be bloody." So basically, he was saying that he was going to, I don't know, I guess annihilate everybody that was in there, like all these people that are in there for whatever reason, whether it be mental or physical, or kind of out of it, and yet he was really threatening to blow up a mental institution. I guess that's really what he was trying to say by getting Chernobog involved. And of course, that gets Shadow Moon involved, which then brings up probably the worst part of the episode for me, and that was the heist. Of course, they are trying to get the guy that's over that place. They're trying to get to blackmail him to release Demeter. Him and Cordelia and Shadow Moon then do this, I don't know, Ocean's 11 thing where that they steal his briefcase, and it was just really stupid and really cliche. And it was by far one of the worst parts I've seen in all three seasons of American Gods. And it ruined a lot for me. Like, I just felt like that was about 15 minutes that they could have been spending on getting in some way or another. Cordelia could have broke into his office or something along those lines and maybe got it or found some other way where that they could have saved up some time to, give it to some other character that really needed it this episode. So I didn't really enjoy that at all. I don't really understand where Cordelia is coming from. I don't really understand her place in here. I get it. I guess she got $100,000 out of it, but I don't see why she's so loyal to Mr. Wednesday. It's either she's going to betray them in the end, or either Mr. Wednesday has something over her that's probably really tragic. And I'm kind of hoping it's a tragic thing, because it just feels more like what Mr. Wednesday would actually do, is to use something against somebody like that. So I'm hoping that that's at least what he's trying to do with Cordelia, because I don't see why she is so loyal to him. She has no history with him, or at least no history that we know of. I will say, I touched on Laura earlier. I felt like Laura, this episode for Laura was a really poor episode. Um, she comes back and to the funeral place, and she, or parlor, and she that's where Ibis, they're shocked, they don't understand. Ibis and Salim don't understand how she's alive, and then she tells them the story about Baron Samedi and all of that, about how basically it was Sweeney's love that brought her back. But they touch on this one thing about how she had to love him back to at least a certain point for it to have worked. So I thought that was kind of a cool little indication of how the two really felt. Um, Probably my biggest regret of season 3 is that we don't see anything of Mad Sweeney. I mean, Mad Sweeney was such a definitive, such a amazing character in American Gods, and the idea that we might go a full season without seeing anything of him is really sad. This show really needs him in this time. I feel like Laura is lost. I feel like Laura is a lost character without Mad Sweeney. And I get it, at the very end of this episode, she reunites with Shadow Moon, but I just don't think that's where she's at her best. I think she is at her best, and really is one of the better characters of this show when she's with Mad Sweeney. But alone, she's not really that interesting of a character. She's just full of satire. She's very cynical, as the way she treated Salim. Salim is a very religious person, and when he asks her what happened to her in her afterlife, she tells him nothing. And I thought that was a really cruel thing to do to Salim, who is already teetering on the edge when it comes to his faith. And he even, tells her in the car about it when they go on their little road trip about how the jinn finally broke him. And I almost kind of wonder if that was the jinn just being cruel to be cruel. Because if there was one thing that we actually did see about the jinn, is the jinn really, really hated Salim's faith. He wanted Salim to be as cynical as what he was. And I don't think he wanted to be with Salim if it meant Salim putting his faith in something that was, or someone that was out of his control. And so I almost kind of wonder now if if the jinn getting his way and finally breaking Salim is his way of reuniting with Salim and finally getting the Salim that he wants, the one that is broken free of his religious aspects and now chooses his own path, I guess. And I hope that's not what they do. I really actually enjoy Salim's faith in this. And that's what makes him so unique of a character on this show is he's not cynical like the other ones. He's feels like he's got a purpose. He feels like like things are out of his control and he's accepted that. Something that so many of these characters on this show would really benefit from knowing. So yeah, I hope that that's not what they do with Salim's character. I don't like the idea of him being with Laura because Laura is only going to antagonize him further with it because she's so cynical about things. She doesn't care about the gods. She just wants payback. She literally, to me, learned nothing. The sacrifice that Mad Sweeney did for her basically was pointless. And I guess you could say, well, he didn't really sacrifice that for her, but all of that, he knew his time was fixing to end. And he had to know to a certain extent that what he was going to do, that his sacrifice was eventually going to lead to her life. And for her to use it just to get revenge for him or for whatever her life on Mr. Wednesday just seems like a bad use of this renewal of life. So I'm not too happy with that. I would almost rather her be dead and Mad Sweeney be alive because at least at the end of the day, Mad Sweeney just by himself was just kind of a fun character anyways. Where she's just so down and out. I mean, just downtrodden. And she makes everybody else around her downtrodden. And I'm not saying that because I hate her character. I actually really like her character. But like Shadow Moon and Mr. Wednesday, I feel like these characters go better in pairs. And I feel like she's at her best when she's with Mad Sweeney. Just like Shadow Moon is at his best when he's with Mr. Wednesday. At least that's how I look at it. But I guess, cutting to the very end of the episode, that was actually my favorite part of the episode. Of how you have Mr. Wednesday and you have Shadow Moon talking and Demeter is painting. Mr. Wednesday is telling about how he's going to use his plan to get her out and, by blackmailing the head of that place. And you see that picture of Lucifer and Eve in the background, and I thought that was really fitting because that's exactly kind of what he's doing. You never quite know when it comes to Mr. Wednesday exactly if he's honest or if he's, he's a trickster, or if if he's honest or if he's tricking you. I guess you could say, and because he is such a trickster. But I think when Demeter is telling Shadow Moon about their love, about her love for Mr. Wednesday, and she talks about how lost really changed Mr. Wednesday for the worst. And I'm assuming that that loss is of Mr. Wednesday's son. And I think that's what that was all got leading up to. And it really stung Mr. Wednesday. Like, it hurt him to the core. You could see it in his eyes. He just was flabbergasted about what to do or what to say. And to me, that just was a perfect showing of just how much control Demeter actually has over him. And I love it. I love the back and forth between the two. I like just how she owns him so well. When we've seen the last 2.5 seasons where he's owning everybody around him, even the strongest of characters, but yet he's powerless when it comes to her because she knows him so well. She knows that chink in his armor. She knows exactly where to stab it through to pierce that skin. She is, I mean, she's cold and calculating in that way. I almost kind of think that through her kind demeanor, I almost kind of think she's just as bad as Mr. Wednesday to a certain extent because she really lays it on him thick. And but it's still one of my favorite parts of the episode. Really, it was probably the best part of it. I don't know. I say it's probably one of the best part. Probably the coolest part of the episode was Bilquis killing those two guards with the water. That was eerie when she just come out of that water like that, and then of course they leave, and the water breaks down and starts flooding the area. That actually was pretty cool too. But I would say overall my favorite part was the Demeter Shadow Moon conversation that really threw Mr. Wednesday off. It's something about Shadow Moon and Demeter. It was almost like she was looking him over. Like she almost didn't believe it. Like she almost believed it was a con at first. And then, of course, when she looks at him that second time and she realizes, hey, he is Mr. Wednesday's child, she really, that's the moment that she really goes in for the kill with Mr. Wednesday because she knows his weakness now. And but overall, I mean, this was not my favorite episode. If I had to grade it, I'd say it's like a 5 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10 for me. That's how bad I thought it was. I just did not enjoy anything about it. And Technical Boy, I don't know. Going back to that monotron or whatever they call that, I did not understand. There were so many things about this episode that it just didn't make sense at all. I thought Technical Boy's whole origin story just didn't make sense. I just didn't like it from the very beginning. Like I said, I did enjoy Bilquis. I enjoyed that last scene between Demeter and Shadow Moon and Mr. Wednesday. But anything in between, I hated the heist. I hated the heist. The heist was the worst. By far, the heist was the worst part of this episode, if not all 3 seasons combined. That's how bad I hated it. But anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think. Let me know if y'all understood Technical Boy's thing at the very end. I didn't understand it. I guess it was him going back to his roots or his safe space. I don't know. I don't really understand exactly what it is, but it's not going to help him with his glitching, so I didn't really understand that. But let me know if y'all have got a better answer about that because I'm completely lost on that aspect of it. But let me know if y'all enjoyed this episode a little bit more or a little bit better than I did. I know a lot of y'all probably did out there, but to me, this episode, it just, the characters that I love were not at their best, and that's the reason why this episode just didn't work for me too well. But as always, guys, thank y'all for watching, and y'all take care.